Hello there, this is Jenny from Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. I have an art journal video for you, so get comfy and let's get crafty. I will be working from this prompt from the Mission Inspiration Facebook group for the month of April 2022. The theme this month is monochromatic, creating a project using one color family, lightening or darkening it with black and white. So my idea here was to create a colorized black and white photo, kind of, sort of. The first step in this project is to add a background texture layer. I will be adhering this black and white scrapbook paper to my art journal page. My art journal page is mixed media paper that is approximately 5.5 by 8.5 inches, and I will be adhering this pattern paper to my art journal page with a liquid medium. I'm just going to go ahead and squeeze it on and then brush it out. I don't want to have any raised edges at this point in my project. I am using this piece of scrapbook paper because it is black, white, and gray, but in the end, you won't really even see it. It's just the bottom layer, kind of like your fitted sheet. You don't know what's there, but it's better than sleeping on a plain mattress. Okay, now that I have that paper on and adhered, I've also added a layer of liquid medium over the top of the page. Wasn't necessary. I'm not doing anything that needed that sealing property, but it's habit. I did go ahead and heat set it with my heat tool. This is an image that I have printed out onto a piece of rice paper. I found this package of rice paper on Amazon that can go through my inkjet printer. It's not quite A2 size, but it feeds through my printer just fine. I'm going to cut off these grassy edges first and just take the barn image. And the first thing I want to do is tear off the edges. Napkins, tissue paper, rice paper, they're a lot easier to blend into the background if the edge is a little bit more organic. So I'm just going to very carefully trim off that frame. I will speed it up here just a little bit. I want to be able to blend the rice paper image into this background paper. Obviously, it's not going to blend into those ABCs, so I did decide to go ahead and put a layer of gesso over the top of the scrapbook paper. It was not a step I planned, but as I was thinking about it, rice paper and tissue paper and napkins, that non-colored part of the paper that doesn't have any ink or image in it, tends to disappear, which would then bring those ABCs to the forefront, and I did not want that. The sky area of this photograph is cloudy, but it's not a dark enough pigment that it would block out those images completely. So I just added a really thin layer of white gesso. I wet my brush down just a little bit to thin that out even more, knowing that the gesso is going to dry back less thick. So now the letters are there, but they're not visible, or they're not prominent, rather. So I am going to just add a little bit of this gel medium to the center of my page there. And I will add the tissue paper or the rice paper image down and smooth it from the center out. I do want this to be as smooth as possible. There's some other things I'm going to do to add texture that won't work quite as well if my page is wrinkly, nor will it blend into my background as easily if my background, or if my image is wrinkly. Sorry. So I have pulled out two distress paints. One is old paper. It's a green tinted white, and then I've pulled out black soot. Now, I also have a piece of a paint sponge that I intended to use, but I am finding that at least with these distress paints, the sponge just soaks up more paint than I actually end up getting on the paper. So I ended up just using my fingers to blend the edges of this rice paper into my background, and it worked for me. One thing with the black paint is a little black paint goes a really long way. So I am trying to create a darker edge here on the right-hand side where there's a tree there that's kind of, you can't really see it, but I know it's there. So I am trying to make that side a little bit darker, and then I will want the top and the left-hand side lighter and the bottom darker. I decided to add a little bit of gesso because the gesso will tint with the paint, but it makes this paint just a little bit more opaque. And I wanted the edge to not, I'm trying to blend in that torn edge, and it needed a little bit more opacity, a little less translucence, because the white distress paint is incredibly translucent. It's not opaque at all. So I'm adding just a tiny bit of black paint to my gesso and my old paper paint color. And obviously, if my white is tinted green, then my color family is a green color family. The photograph here of the barn and the trees is printed in black and white with an undertone of green. If you, in the pictures, hopefully you can see at the end, you can see that green, especially in the grasses I will add in a minute, and in the barn, you can really see that green kind of pop through the gray. So I am going to add, now that I have my edges blurred, I am going to add some texture. And the first thing I want to do is put some texture paste through this stencil. This is the Crafters Workshop Art Is stencil. It is just a scripty font that you're not really supposed to be able to read. I think I can make out 3 or 4 words on the whole stencil. It's just there to add interest and texture and background. It's just the background. My focal image, the main part of this image, is going to be shades of green. It's more of an aqua green than a green, but it is still in that green family because aqua is a blue and a green mix. I am using it in the green family. And when the focal image is added to the page, it really does pull more of the green out of that black and white photograph. I am also going to add a little bit of texture paste through this beehive or honeycomb hexagonal stencil as well. Just another little nod to background. We've got a barn, we've got a farm, so now we've got some honeycomb. It kind of works together. But it's mostly just for visual interest. It's not something that you notice right away. It's not the main image of the page. It's just there. So here is my color. This is an acrylic ink I purchased on Amazon. It's a very shimmery, shiny ink. I've used it before in my art journal pages. And I want to take this turquoise bluish green, that is my color theme, that greenish turquoise, and water it down and add it to the top of my page to kind of fill in that sky area. So the original photograph of this barn was a cloudier sky. It wasn't a sunny day. So the photograph I found online in a free digital image. It's a free digital image I found online. And it had it was a color photograph that I recolored, that I made into a black and white photo on my computer. And it kind of drowned it out, that cloudy sky. It made it a little bit less obvious. So my thought of adding my color into the sky would be to kind of pull that. You know how sometimes stormy skies are not quite blue, not quite gray? That's kind of where I was going here. I did add a little bit down to the bottom as well. And that's just to kind of create that frame idea where the colors are going from the top and the bottom together. So here is my focal image. This is a picture of a rusted out car. Now I know that technically the rust is another color, but we're playing like that's a neutral. I have also printed on rice paper some wispy grass, and I'm going to lay this down around that car so that it appears that the grass is growing around the tires of the vehicle. I am going to tear the edges on this rice paper as well to give it a more organic feel. It did take a little bit more work to get the non-pigmented parts of the rice paper to blend in because I printed my car on regular copy paper. I did not want that car to have any amount of translucence. I didn't want the barn to be visible through the panels of the car. So the car itself is printed on copy paper. So it did take a little bit more work. I used some colored pencil. I used a lot of gel, liquid medium to really get that rice paper wet. And I have found that if you put the gel medium on the back of this particular rice paper, this package that I purchased at Amazon, it does help kind of camouflage, maybe that's a good word, that rice paper. There's just a little thing I learned as I was putting the grass around my car here. So I've taken this piece, and I don't want a solid piece of grass, even though eventually it kind of looks that way. I want to work in pieces. And I didn't put any liquid medium behind it, and I should have. That will help it become more transparent. I did decide to go in and tear some more of that white space out and kind of make the edge a little closer to the tips of the blades of grass. And of course, now it's got adhesive on it, so it's all stuck to my fingers. And then I thought about sliding this underneath the car, but then it looks like the car is parked on top of the grass blades, and that's just weird. So I did go ahead and put that piece back down and really worked on blending this grass image into my background. And it did take a few minutes. And this is kind of when I realized the wetter it is, the more translucent it's going to be. And it all worked out. I did kind of pick up the top edge a little bit and tear some more off as it started to cover up the grill of the car there. I have no idea what kind of car that is. I'm not really a car person. I just like the image. It's a photograph that I have in my image collection on my computer. And when I had this idea to do a black and white photo with one item in the photograph recolorized, this was kind of what I thought of, an old car sitting in a field on a farm. That's kind of where my brain went. So I know that it's probably not technically by the strictest definition of the word a monochromatic project, but I do only have one color other than gray and white. All right, so I'm going to take this old paper distress paint and put a little bit more down on my desktop. I'm going to add a little bit more gesso to it. And the gesso comes out faster than the paint, and it's a little ridiculous, but it is what it is. And I am going to blend in that grass again. And a cool thing happens when I blend in this grass. The slight green tint to the old paper paint pulls out the green in the gray on the grass. So then it looks a little bit like the grass has been slightly colorized, but not really, if that makes sense. I know it's kind of hard to see on the video because the lighting that I have to kind of blow out all the shadows so you can see what I'm doing is downplaying that color. But as I blend with my finger and this damp baby wipe, that grass becomes more and more visible, and the rice paper itself starts to blend and becomes less visible. I did add a little bit more of that black soot to my old papers and my old paper paint and my white gesso just to get a shadow underneath that car, because obviously there's going to be a shadow. And I'm just continuing to push that rice paper into the background by blending those kind of organic edges. I did add a little bit more of the darker paint to that tree line and a little bit more on the barn side there's a bush there and a shadow there. I wanted to kind of blend that side out just a little bit more. My fingers and my baby wipe seem to be the tool of the day, and I'm really loving how it's turning out. I decided to pull out my aqua paint again because I had pushed a lot of that back as I added that second layer of paint and gesso, especially down at the bottom. It had dried back quite a bit from adding the water at the top. So I am just kind of pulling that kind of aqua teal green from the car into the top of the page as well. And then I will do the same thing I did previously with that aqua paint, is add a little bit on the bottom to create that kind of top frame, bottom frame thing, so that the image is kind of surrounded by this aqua paint. And so far, I'm kind of loving how it's turning out. I decided it needed a little bit more black, a little bit more starkness. So I have these Tim Holtz Alterations rub-ons, and I'm pulling out some that are just, I have this text block, I have a postage stamp, like the cancellation stamp on an envelope, just a couple of odd things here and there. There's a ticket. The text block I actually cut in half lengthwise and put one half on the left and one half on the right, just because I didn't want it to become super pronounced. I am going over this with my bone folder. I tried my Teflon bone folder, but I feel like this skinny one actually kind of gets down in there a little bit better, especially because of the texture paste that I am working over. And you can tell when it is finished because the black rub-on starts to become less clear. And then all of a sudden the plastic paper just slips right off. It just moves on your page. So, you think is this working? Is it working? Is it working? And then boom, the plastic moves and voila, it's done. Okay, so I went into my Tim Holtz stickers and I found a quote strip that says, "Fall in love with as many things as possible." I like that quote. I like this page. They don't go together. That's okay. It's my art journal. I can do what I want. All right, so now I'm headed into adding some shadowing. The first thing I did was outline that text or that quote, and I'm using my my Derwent Inktense pencils. These colored pencils are actually an ink, and once you add the water, it activates the pigment, and once the pigment is activated, it is permanent. So it is a perfect medium for art journals. I have been using them a lot in my art journal to add the shadow, and I just love it. I also pulled out a blue Inktense pencil and went over the front bumper of that car. And then I'm adding some shadows around the barn. I felt like they had the barn had kind of been faded in just a little bit too much. As I'm adding the shadows to the text box and adding the shadow underneath the car, I felt like the barn needed just a little bit more. It was getting lost. It needed to be pulled back out to the forefront, or to the barn is not the background. The barn is part of the image. And then I pulled out my white Inktense pencil and went over the windows in this barn. And it's not something that is drastic, but now you can see the windows. So I love it. It turned out great. I am signing my name and dating the page, and then I will flip it over and add my recipe card to the back. I do this on all of my Mission Inspiration art journal pages and all of my mini mission pages. And it's just there to remind me what the prompt was, what the theme was, what the color combination was, so that when I go back and look through, or when somebody else goes back and looks through my pages, there's a rhyme and reason as to why I have done what I have done. So we're nearing the end of the video here. All I have left to do is punch the holes in my art journal page. But you can see that there is some black and some white into my color, my aqua color. There's also a lot of black and white in and of itself. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I hope you enjoyed seeing this process video. I do have some close-up videos for you here to watch. I'm going to zoom in a little bit there so that you can see how the windows are more visible. Here is my car. It's not my car. Here's the car on my art journal page, and a little bit of the texture. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a really great day. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel and watching my video. I have linked a couple other videos here for you to watch, as well as a subscribe button. If you have not done so already, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel. And if you know somebody who would like it, please feel free to share. Have a great day.